Okay, so next question then, we're looking at this one. Using a sporting example, explain the schema theory. This will probably be a 6-mark question. When you get a schema theory question, we have to follow a formula. Now, this is a tough theory. There's no getting away from it. However, I do feel that there's a specific way you can use to remember this. And what we're going to do is we're going to imagine a scenario, and the scenario is the last kind of minute of a rugby game, okay? And basically, we're looking at a team trying to attack to score, and you're going to follow this mnemonic, okay? So basically you do as follows. You're going to imagine that a rugby player kicks the ball into corner, so kick into corner. Following that, they retrieve the ball and there's a ruck and a scrum. Following that, scrum, they score and there's a conversion. And then finally, the match is over. Now, those key initials that come from that mnemonic, that sentence to help us remember things, is going to translate into the 4 memory items of which the schema theory is based on. Now, that is the most basic information. After you've done translated those, you have to have a question. Okay, so for this one, once you've translated it, so knowledge of initial conditions, okay, you'd be talking about, have I been in this situation before? For example, if we did a rugby 2v1, have I been in a 2v1 before? The K is just a prefix for all of these. Okay, so we're saying, right, knowledge is going to be here. So the next one is knowledge of response specifications. Okay, so what options do I have? I can, e.g. 2v1 and rugby, do I pass? Do I dummy? Do I run with the ball? Penultimately, we have knowledge of sensory consequences. And this then looks at kind of how should the pass feel? E.g. should I pass it hard if they're far away? And then finally, knowledge of movement outcome. Okay, so what was the result of my pass? Okay, did they catch it and did we score? That's how you're looking. You have to ask yourself a question to get the explanation mark here. Okay, and then the example should be linked to a 2v1 in rugby. Translated, okay, you can add on luxury bits such as recall schema for the first 2 items, recognition schema for the second 2 items. That's what it looked like. Schema are modified motor programs that are adapted to new situations. 2v1 in rugby, there's your key bits. Kick into corner, knowledge of initial conditions, ruck, scrum, response specification, sensory consequences, so score conversion, and match over, whistle blows, scored the conversion, movement outcome. Okay, so what I'm asking you to do there is you will have to practice that. That is not something that's just going to come. And those who've been taught it by me, you will remember it once I go through it. Those who haven't been taught by me before, you're going to have to spend a bit of time to make sure you try and stick that in your long-term memory. Moving on then, okay, using examples, explain different types of feedback. Now I'm keeping this short. I will provide a 10-mark question booklet where you know, if you've been taught by me, that this is something we're expecting as a 10-mark question. Critically evaluate the types of feedback using sporting examples. I'm just going to keep this short now, okay, and just say, right, feedback. When you talk about feedback, okay, there is a way we can talk about it. The first type of feedback that everyone has heard of is positive feedback. Okay, so what I'm going to do is use those first three letters to kind of help us kind of get an acronym to remember the types of feedback so we can identify them. Following being able to identify them, we then need to be able to explain them using a key phrase. Remember, I'm trying to keep it simple and condensed, and then you need to be able to give an example. So what we're going to do, if we think of positive feedback, we're going to use the word pos, and we're going to call it posterior K. So if you do that, posterior K, as I've split it there, okay, you have positive, has a direct pair, which is negative. Okay, you have ter, which is terminal, which has a direct opposite, which is concurrent. You have I, which is intrinsic, which has a direct opposite, which is extrinsic. Then you have this K comes to here, which is core, knowledge of results, and then that will directly contrast with knowledge of performance. Okay, so they are your 6 types of feedback, your 8 types of feedback. The question was 6, so you could pick the 6 that you wanted to do. I suggest you get used to writing a key phrase. Now, all of the prefixes for the types of feedback when you're explaining them, information given via positive, praise, negative, criticism, terminal, end of movement, concurrent during movement, intrinsic, information from sensory consequences, extrinsic, information from kind of external source, knowledge of results equals information on the outcome, knowledge of performance, information on technical execution. They're your key phrases. That's all you really need to know, okay? And then you need to be able to put an example on top. So I'll let you pause that, have a look through it, and you can have a look from there. Going on then. Last question. So basically, describe the drive reduction theory. Explain how drive reduction could influence the adoption of a balanced, active, healthy lifestyle. come up once, okay, as a standalone question, 2009, first ever set of exams. It's ready to come, so we need to be ready for it. So what we need to do, drive reduction theory. It asks you to describe it firstly, 2 marks, then you'll explain how it could influence the adoption of balanced set to healthy lifestyle, another 2 marks. So when we remember this, you need to use this. So when you think of drive reduction, you think of I, drive, reduction, Y. And that is basically the order you go through it. I is the initial drive. We all have an initial drive to learn. However, there is a reduction in this initial drive, and we have to ask ourselves why. And there are 3 reasons why we kind of have a reduction in drive to perform or learn new behaviors or learn new skills. That translates to this. Okay, so initial drive to learn new skills, behavior, e.g. a gym membership. Then there's a reduction in drive, okay, and we need to know why. So this leads to a decreased motivation. So the things that can cause us to have a reduction in drive is overlearning. Okay, we get too good at it. Okay, so a gym plan, for example, is too easy. Being too difficult. Okay, so we make a gym plan too hard and you think, I don't fancy doing this anymore. Finally, you have a skill that's kind of, if it's overlearned, sometimes it becomes tedious and inhibiting to your performance. So for example, running on a treadmill at a gym can become boring. Now, the key thing behind the drive reduction theory is that you can set new targets and goals to kind of ignite that drive to learn new behaviors. For example, instead of doing treadmill running, you could attend a Bokwa class, and that could be something coming from a significant other, such as a personal trainer. Okay, so they are your key questions for skill acquisition or acquiring movement skills. Okay, that's that for now. They're the things you need to prepare for a revision session 1.